Hi, my name is Calvin with Solution Dynamics, and today I'm going to talk about KPIs and KPI organization and management. KPIs should be organized in a fashion where they are essentially bottom up and top down. There are KPIs which are your key KPIs being essentially your overall goal. To me, there is the goal KPI and there's a programmatic KPI. And a programmatic KPI should be, what is the profitability of my energy management program? I'm thinking about this from a business perspective. Also though, your key KPIs are related to your goals. And let me show you quickly how this works. So say you have a goal line here, and what's happening is you're tracking along fine. Okay, I'm doing a little better, a little worse, a little better. And then you have a tolerance band around this, and all of a sudden you're down here, and because you went below your tolerance band, this triggers an alarm. Now, of course, to do this, you have to have a utility monitoring system. There's no way around that. But assuming that you have a mature energy management program, you have to have a utility monitoring system in order to measure and track your progress towards your goals in a real-time basis so that you can actually manage it. So you triggered an alarm. So now what do? Well, you got to find where the problem is. Where is this coming from? So if you organize your KPIs like this, you have a tool that will enable you to find where that deviation is coming from. And of course, each of these levels can have their own alarms on them. But as you get into a big facility, or if you have multiple facilities that are rolling up into one management tool, you could get thousands of points that you're monitoring and putting your own KPIs around. And essentially a KPI is a virtual meter. Typically a KPI wants to be something along the lines of what is my compressed air CFM per kW used to produce that. That would be a classic example of a KPI. So when you set up KPIs and you get an alarm, what you can do is start to drill down and define where the problem is. And I'll show you an example of that, but let's talk about what these are. So key KPI here is going to be your main goal. A subsystem type KPI, this would be like profit or energy per ton of production, what have you. A subsystem KPI, this could be a chilled water system. And here you'd be looking at the whole system, not just the chillers. You'd be looking at all the chillers, all the pumping, the condensers, everything that goes along with it, cooling towers, I mean. And you'd be rolling that up into a kW per ton type number. Here you might have something like the subsystem, which may be just the chillers or just the chilled water distribution system. And then down at the component level would be what in that subsystem is out of line. So it could be chiller number 3, its kW per ton is way off spec. And you can drill into that chiller and find out, hey, I've got non-condensables in my refrigerant cycle, or my heat exchanger is fouled, things of that nature. So that's an example of how you can drill in. So okay, I'm deviating up here. As I get down, I'll see, okay, well this system over here is off. And then I can go down to the subsystem and finally to the component level to figure out where the problem is. So that's one example of how you would organize KPIs. Another thing to do when working with KPIs is understanding what your comparables are for your targeting. So you have a goal line, but also you want to evaluate your KPIs in terms of how am I doing compared to last shift? How am I doing compared to last week for the same shift? How am I doing compared to last year for the same period? How am I doing relative to other similar plants? How am I doing relative to what is considered best in class for that system? What's a best in class chiller performance? How is my chiller doing? Or my compressed air system, or my boiler system, or what have you? And then you can also look at it in terms of theoretical max. You know, what is the maximum performance I can get out of this, or the minimum energy use per ton of metal that I put through the oven. There's a calculatable theoretical minimum energy use per ton. If I have to elevate that piece of metal from X temperature to Y temperature as it goes through this process, that would be the theoretical minimum, is what does it take to do that versus what am I actually using to do that. So all of those comparables are good. And the point of a lot of this is to do reporting. The reporting, basically, you get the numbers out of the system, you give them to the people who are operating these systems, maintaining these systems, operating the lines, and it empowers them to think about, boy, I am off where I was before, or I'm doing good, maybe I can do better. Here's the theoretical maximum, here's my goal, why don't I try to get to that? But it also points out where problems are when something goes awry. Maybe there was a shutdown, and boy, after the shutdown, I'm way off of my target. Something must have happened, and they can go and correct that. If you're not measuring that, they would never know, and energy waste could go on for years, if not decades. Same goes for water waste too. When I say energy, I'm talking about energy and water. So as an example of the use of KPIs, we had a customer recently who was expressing concern over a water KPI where they were measuring water per unit of production, and they were mentioning how, boy, you know, it's a reasonably good KPI during the week, but on the weekend we're down on production and we're doing a lot of cleanup, and the KPI doesn't make any sense. And everybody knows that, so it's really not a useful metric for actually managing to within expectations, because everybody knows it's an unrealistic number for that condition. Well, the reality is they should have a separate KPI. You should have a KPI for production during the week and a KPI for low production or non-production during the weekends. And then that number should be something that actually makes sense that you can manage against. So there's a lot of different ways to look at KPIs. In the next video, we're going to talk about programmatic approaches to best practices and how that is a lot more than just projects. There's a variety of things that go into creating a fully mature and successful energy management program. Thank you, and for more information, please contact us. The next videos in this series will be on best practices.